week my brother came home for Thanksgiving, I was so happy I made his favorite pie. Pecan. From scratch. The kind that takes 2 hours if you do it right, and I did it right because I wanted everything to be right, because it had been 14 months since I'd seen him, and I missed him in that specific way you miss someone who has always made every room feel steadier just by being in it. His name is Owen. He's 3 years older than me, and growing up, he was the one teachers remembered. Not because he was loud, Owen was never loud, but because he paid attention in a way that made adults feel like what they were saying actually mattered. My mother used to say he had an old soul. My father just said Owen was the kind of person who figured things out. He figured out at 22 that he wanted to be a CPA. Not just an accountant, a CPA, licensed, the real thing. He passed the first 2 sections of the exam on his first try. My parents talked about it at dinner for a week. He moved to Charlotte for a job at a mid-sized firm. Sent money home when my dad's truck needed a new transmission. Called every Sunday, sometimes longer than 30 minutes, which, if you know how men in my family treat phone calls, tells you something. 7 years passed, he got promoted, then promoted again, or so we thought. He was handling clients with portfolios in the millions, or so we thought. He was being considered for a partnership track at the firm, or so we thought. I thought all of these things because he told us, and we believed him because he was Owen and Owen didn't lie. My husband's name is Seth. He does forensic accounting, the kind where companies hire him to find the money that's gone missing, or the money that was never where someone said it was. He's good at it. Patient, methodical. He has a way of looking at numbers the way other people look at crossword puzzles. Not frustrated, just curious, like the answer is already in there and he just hasn't found it yet. We've been married 4 years. He knew Owen before he knew me, actually. They were in the same intramural basketball league back when Seth first moved to our town for a contract job. They lost every game. Seth still brings it up. The thing about being married to someone like Seth is that you stop thinking of his work as something separate from him. It's just part of how he sees the world. He notices inconsistencies, the way other people notice when a picture frame is crooked. He doesn't mention most of them. He's not the kind of person who makes everything a problem. Which is why, when he said something at Thanksgiving, I listened. We were finishing dinner. My mum had brought out the pie, and Owen was talking about a client, some pharmaceutical distribution company, he said, that had recently restructured and needed a full audit of their subsidiary accounts. He used terms I don't fully understand. He sounded confident. He always sounded confident. Seth was quiet at the end of the table. He'd been quiet most of the meal, which wasn't unusual. Seth goes quiet when he's listening hard. Later, after my parents had gone to bed and Owen had taken my nephew on a walk round the block, Seth found me in the kitchen. I was washing the pie dish. He stood in the doorway for a second before he said anything. "Hey, hey," I said. He was looking at his coffee cup. He does that sometimes, holds his coffee and looks at it when he's deciding whether to say something. "Can I ask you something about Owen?" I turned off the faucet. "Sure. Has he ever mentioned where his firm is physically located, like the office address?" I thought about it. Charlotte. He always said Charlotte. Right. He nodded. Which firm? Meridian something. Meridian Group, I think. Why? He set the coffee down on the counter. Probably nothing. Seth, I'm sure it's nothing. You don't say probably nothing about nothing. He looked at me then, and I recognized that look. It's the same look he gets when he finds a number that doesn't quite add up, and he's not sure yet which direction the error is going to fall. "The client he described tonight," Seth said slowly, "the pharmaceutical one with the subsidiary audit, the restructuring terms he used don't work that way. The liability structure he described doesn't exist in that configuration. It's a small thing. Could be that he simplified it for the table. But I've heard him describe his work before, and some of the details." He stopped. "It's probably fine." "What are the details?" He picked up the coffee again. "I just want to look something up. I didn't sleep well that night. I told myself I was being dramatic. Seth found irregularities in multi-million-dollar accounts for a living. Of course, his brain was going to flag things other people missed. That didn't mean anything was wrong with Owen. Owen was my brother. Owen sent money home for my dad's truck. Owen called every Sunday. In the morning, I came downstairs and Seth was already at the kitchen table with his laptop. He looked up when I walked in. He didn't say good morning. "I can't find Meridian Group," he said. I pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. "What do you mean you can't find them?" "I mean there's no firm by that name registered in North Carolina. There's a Meridian Financial Partners in Virginia and the Meridian Accounting Group in Arizona. But neither of them has a Charlotte office, and neither of them has Owen listed as an employee." I stared at him. Maybe he said the name wrong. Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. Maybe. He turned the laptop so I could see it. I also looked up his LinkedIn. He hasn't updated it in 4 years. The last job listed is a junior associate position at a firm called Larkspur & Cole. I called their main number this morning. Seth. They said they don't have a current employee by that name. They had someone by that name on a temporary contract 6 years ago. The contract ended. The kitchen was very quiet. My mother was still asleep. Owen was still asleep. Outside, the neighbour's dog was doing laps in the backyard like he did every morning, and everything was exactly the same as it always was, except that the floor had shifted slightly beneath my feet. "It might be a privacy thing," I said. "Firms don't always confirm employment. They do when you say you're a potential client." I looked at my hands on the table. "So what are you saying?" Seth was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I don't know yet, but I think you should ask him." I didn't ask him. Not that day. We ate leftover turkey sandwiches for lunch. Owen took my parents to see a movie in the afternoon, some action thing my dad had wanted to see for months. I stayed home and sat on the couch and thought about all the things I knew about my brother and all the things I had just assumed, and how, when you lay them side by side, they were not the same pile. I thought about 7 Christmases where he talked about his clients in the abstract, the bonuses he mentioned but never specified, the apartment in Charlotte I had seen exactly once on a video call and couldn't fully describe beyond modern and nice, the way he always had a reasonable answer when we asked questions, not evasive, just streamlined, like he'd thought about what to say and how much to say and had chosen carefully. I thought about my father, who had taken extra weekend shifts the year Owen started studying for the CPA exam to help cover his rent while he prepared. My father, who was 63 years old and still drove that same truck, and whose hands had been rough from 30 years of HVAC work, and who lit up every time Owen called on Sundays, like it was the thing he looked forward to most all week. And I thought about my mother, who kept a framed photo of Owen at his office on the living room shelf. He had sent it years ago. A desk. A monitor. A man who looked like my brother in a button-down shirt. I went and looked at that photo while they were gone. The desk could have been anywhere. He was leaving Sunday morning. Saturday night, after dinner, my parents went to watch television in the living room. Seth offered to help clean up and then quietly disappeared to give me space, which was either the most considerate or most terrifying thing he'd ever done. Owen was wrapping up the remaining cornbread in foil. I said, "Can I ask you something?" He looked over. "Sure." "How's the firm?" "Good," he said. "Busy season coming up, so what's the address?" He paused. Just a half second. The foil crinkled. "Uptown," he said. "Off Trade Street. The name again? I keep forgetting." He looked at me. Not long, maybe 2 seconds. But the look changed. Something underneath it changed. He set the cornbread down on the counter. He didn't say anything for a long moment, and I stood there, watching my brother's face do something I had never seen it do before, which was come apart, very slowly, in a way he was trying to control and couldn't. "Owen," I said. "Don't," he said. And then, "How long have you known?" "Seth found some things." He closed his eyes. Of course he did. "Owen, how much does he know? Just that the firm doesn't come up. And your LinkedIn." He let out a breath. He pressed both hands flat on the counter and looked down at them. And he stayed that way for so long, I started to count the seconds without meaning to. 8, 9, 10. "I left Larkspur 6 years ago," he said finally. "They let me go." Budget cuts, they said, but I don't know. I think I wasn't what they expected. I tried to find something else. I sent out 47 applications over 8 months. I kept a spreadsheet. He said that last part almost like he was embarrassed by the spreadsheet, like the effort itself was the humiliating part. I got 2 interviews, one offer from a small bookkeeping operation in Greensboro, entry level, 41,000 a year. He looked up at me. I had told Dad I was making 78. I didn't say anything. I took the job, he said. In Greensboro. I've been there for 5 years. It's a real job. Is legitimate work. I do accounts for small businesses, some contractors, a few non-profits. I'm good at it. I'm actually good at it. He said that like he needed me to hear it. But it's not what I told you. The clients you described, I read industry news. I know what real audit work sounds like. He stopped. It was easier to keep the story than to change it. By the time I realized how long it had been, I didn't know how to walk it back. 6 years, Owen. I know. Dad worked Saturdays for you. I know. His voice cracked on the second word. Just slightly. Just enough. I know what he did. I know what it cost him. Do you think there's a day I don't? He stopped, pressed his fingers to his eyes. I've been sending money back for 4 years. More than he gave me. Not as a big thing. Just, here, Dad, use this. The truck needs work. Use this. The truck needs work. Use this. I've been trying to. That's not the same. No, he said. It's not. We stood in the kitchen for a while, not saying anything. Down the hall I could hear the television. Some news program. My father's laugh at something, low and familiar. Are you going to tell them? Owen said, and that was the moment I had been afraid of since Saturday morning, because I didn't know the answer. I didn't know if the kindest thing was to keep it and let him carry it, or to give it to our parents and let them decide what they could hold. I said, I think you have to. He looked at me. Tonight? I think if you leave Sunday without saying it, you're going to drive home and put it back in the box and close the lid, and then it's going to be 5 more years. He was quiet. I think you already know that, I said. I don't know exactly what I expected when Owen went into the living room and asked my parents to turn off the television. I had stepped out to the porch. Seth had come and stood with me without asking why, which was the thing I loved most about him in that moment, that he just came and stood there. We could hear the murmur of voices through the glass. Not words, just tones. After a while my mother's voice went up slightly and then came back down. My father said something short. Then there was a long quiet. Seth handed me his coffee. I didn't even want coffee, but I took it anyway. After about 20 minutes, my mother opened the back door. She looked at me for a second. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. She had that particular look she gets when she's concentrating on not crying, chin slightly raised. Come inside, she said. My father was sitting in his recliner. Owen was on the couch across from him, elbows on his knees, looking at the carpet. Neither of them was saying anything when I walked in. I sat down next to Owen. I don't know why I did that. It wasn't a choice so much as a direction. My father looked at Owen for a long time. Then he looked at his own hands in his lap. He turned them over once, like he was checking something on the palms. The job in Greensboro, my dad said finally. You like it? Owen looked up. Yeah, Dad, I do. You're good at it. Yeah, my dad nodded slowly, like he was doing math somewhere in his head, adding up things that didn't require a calculator. Then I don't understand, he said, why you didn't just say that. Owen's jaw moved. He didn't answer right away. Because it wasn't what you thought I was going to be, he said. My father looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, Owen, I'm a man who fixes air conditioning units for a living. I've never thought you needed to be anything in particular. I thought you knew that. Something happened to Owen's face then that I'm not going to try to describe because I don't think I have the words for it. It was the kind of expression that belongs to a moment and not to language. My mother, from the corner of the couch, said quietly, How long have you been carrying this? 6 years, Owen said. His voice was different now, lighter in a way that sounded almost painful. like something deflating that had been held too tight. She nodded. She reached over and put her hand on his arm without saying anything else. My father said, "You're going to have to explain the money. The birthday money. The holiday checks. If you've been—" "I kept a record," Owen said. "I know what you spent. I've been putting back more than that." My dad was quiet. "I know it doesn't fix it," Owen said. "No," my father said, "but it tells me something about you that I already knew." Owen stayed an extra night. Sunday, before he left, I found him on the front porch with his coffee, looking out at the street. The leaves were almost completely off the trees. The neighbour's dog was doing his morning laps. I sat down in the other chair. "You okay?" I asked. "Not entirely," he said, "but more than I was." I thought about saying something meaningful, something that wrapped it up, the kind of thing people say in these moments when they want the feeling to be complete. Instead I said, "The Greensboro job. Do you get benefits?" He looked at me. Then he laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of him. "Yeah," he said. "Full benefits. 401k match, even. Good," I said. "Then stop apologizing to Dad. He doesn't want it." Owen looked back at the street. "I know." We sat there for a while. The coffee got cold. A kid on a bike went past, slow and wobbly, concentrating hard. After a while Owen said, "Tell Seth I owe him one." "I'll tell him," I said. "He'll say you don't." "I know," he said. "Tell him anyway." That was 8 months ago. Owen came back for Easter. He drove instead of flew, which I think was intentional. Something about having his own car there, being able to leave if he needed to, being in control of the arrival and the departure instead of dependent on a schedule. He and my father sat in the garage on Easter afternoon and talked for 2 hours about nothing in particular. I watched them through the window for a minute. My father with his hands round a beer, Owen leaning against the workbench, both of them at the unhurried angle of people who have decided they have time. I thought about what it costs to keep a version of something alive that isn't true. The maintenance of it, the way you have to fill in the gaps every time someone asks a question, every time the story needs to grow in a new direction. I thought about my brother doing that for 6 years, building out the architecture of a life he hadn't actually lived, patching the parts that didn't hold, carrying the whole thing from one Sunday phone call to the next. And I thought about what Seth had said to me the night everything happened, when we were finally alone and I was trying to figure out how I felt about all of it. I had said, "Do you think you would have ever told them if you hadn't noticed?" Seth thought about it for a real moment, not a quick one. "I think he was waiting," he said. Not for a good moment necessarily, just for a moment when the weight of it finally outweighed the fear of it. I asked him when he thought that moment would have come. He said, probably when he ran out of ways to make the story bigger. I thought about that for a long time, about what it means to tend a false thing, to water it and keep it and add to it year after year because you are more afraid of the truth than of the work of holding the lie, about the particular loneliness of carrying something you can never put down, never hand to anyone, never set on the table and say, "Here, this is the real thing, will you still sit with me?" I thought about my father's hands turned upward in his lap. I thought about my mother's quiet nod. Some families collapse under the weight of a thing like that. I know that. I've seen it. The fracture that looks like a single moment but is actually a slow split that had been coming for years. And the secret is only the last inch. But some families, not all, not most, maybe, but some, find that what's underneath the story is steadier than the story was, that the love was never conditional on the version they were told, that when the architecture falls, what's left is the floor, and the floor holds. I don't know that we're a better family for what happened. I don't think it's that simple. There are still conversations we haven't finished, things my parents feel that they haven't fully said, and Owen carries something in his face sometimes, a particular quietness in certain moments that I think is the residue of 6 years of maintenance, the habit of vigilance that doesn't disappear overnight just because the secret does. But he calls on Sundays still, and the calls are longer now, and last month he texted me a photo of his actual desk in his actual office in Greensboro. Small room, good light, a plant on the corner that looked like it was doing fine. Real one this time, he wrote. I looked at it for a long time. Then I wrote back, it looks like you. He sent back a single emoji, just a thumbs up, which, from Owen, is practically a novel. I've thought a lot about what courage actually looks like since that Thanksgiving, not the dramatic kind, not the kind that announces itself. I mean the quiet, unglamorous kind, the kind Owen finally found on a Saturday night in my parents' kitchen when he set down a piece of foil-wrapped cornbread and let the story he'd been carrying for 6 years just fall. He didn't confess because he got caught. Not exactly. He confessed because when I asked him the name of the firm a second time, something in his face understood that the door was open, and that walking through it, as terrifying as that was less exhausting than building one more room onto a house that didn't exist. That's the thing about a lie you tend for years. It doesn't stay the same size. It grows with you. Every promotion you invent, every client you describe, every Sunday phone call where you add another layer, the structure gets more elaborate. The maintenance gets heavier, and the person carrying it gets a little more alone. Owen wasn't a dishonest person. He was a scared one. There's a difference, and I think it matters. What I keep coming back to is my father. The way he turned his hands over in his lap like he was looking for something. The way he asked, not with anger, just with this tired, genuine confusion, why Owen didn't just say it. Because my father had spent 30 years doing physical work, hard work, real work, and he had never once suggested that Owen needed to do anything grander than that to deserve his respect. The expectation Owen was running from was one he had built himself, out of love and fear, and the specific kind of pride that makes you want to protect the people who believe in you from the truth that you're struggling. That's not weakness, that's a very human miscalculation, but it costs. It costs the person carrying it everything, their sleep, their ease, their ability to just sit at a dinner table and be present without managing a performance. And it costs the people around them something too, even when they don't know it yet. 6 years of distance that looked like closeness. 6 years of Sunday calls that were real in feeling, but built on something hollow. What changed things wasn't exposure. It was the decision Owen made in that kitchen to stop. To let it be done. Accountability isn't a moment. It's a choice you make when the weight of the real thing finally feels lighter than the weight of the invented one. Owen made that choice. Imperfectly. Late. With his hands shaking probably. But he made it. And what I learned from watching my parents in that living room is that honesty, when it finally comes, doesn't always land the way you expect. It doesn't always shatter things. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, it finds people who were already prepared to hold it, who just needed to be given the chance. My dad didn't need Owen to be a senior partner. He needed Owen to be there, actually, there, in the room with him, not managing a version of himself from a careful distance. The real desk in Greensboro. The plant that's doing fine. A thumbs-up text that meant more than he probably knows. That's what it looks like when someone decides to stop building the wrong house and just walk into the one they actually live in. It's not a dramatic ending. It's a quiet one. But I think quiet is what honesty usually sounds like, once it finally gets the chance to speak.